Hello and welcome to the second video of Section 7, creating an automated Windows 10 linked clone desktop pool. In this video we're going to create a second desktop pool. This time it will be a non-persistent assignment and it will be built using linked clones and the Windows 10 virtual desktop image, or to be more precise, the snapshot of the Windows 10 virtual desktop image. So in this video we're going to create a desktop pool which will use a linked clone image of the Windows 10 Gold image. The pool will have a non-persistent assignment, meaning the user will not own their own desktop, and instead the user will receive a random desktop from the pool when they log in each time. So now we're going to create our Windows 10 virtual desktop machine pool. And this time, as we said, we're going to create a non-persistent pool and we're going to use linked clones to build the desktop images from. So we have logged on to our Horizon 7 administrator console, as we can see here. We've landed on the dashboard page and we are going to build a new desktop pool. So we basically expand the option for catalog and then click desktop pools. So here we can see our previous desktop pool, and now we're going to click the add button to create our new pool. So here's our add desktop pool screen, and the first thing again is our desktop pool definition and the type of desktop pool that we're going to create. In this instance, we're going to create an automated desktop pool. So we're going to click the radio button for automated desktop pool, click next to continue. Then we have our user assignment. So is this going to be dedicated to the user, i.e. are they going to own the desktop? Or is it going to be a non-persistent desktop or a floating desktop which gets allocated on logon time, which could mean they have a different machine each time they log in. So for this pool, we're going to go for floating. So this is going to be a machine that they don't own. They're going to get a machine out of the pool completely at random each time they log in. So we click next to continue. And how are we going to build this machine is what we see on our vCenter server screen. So in this instance, we're going to create a View Composer linked clone desktop. So we click the radio button for linked clones. Then we need to select our vCenter server. And then we're going to click next to continue. So now we need to give the desktop pool an ID. So as we did before, we're going to name this something that means something to us. So we're going to call this Win10 LC for linked clones. And then we need to give display name. So this is the name that the users see. So we're going to call this Windows 10. And we just put LC so we know this is our linked clone desktop. Then we can configure an access group, and then we could give this a description if we want to. Description is optional. Click next to continue. And then we have our desktop pool settings screens. So the first setting is general, and the state is whether the desktop pool is enabled, i.e. users can access desktops within the pool, or disabled, meaning they can't. So we're going to go for enabled because we want our end users to connect. Do we want to configure any connection server restrictions? So this is using the tag feature of the connection server. So this would mean that the desktop pool could be accessed from any connection server if we go for no restrictions. And if we had tags configured, then the desktop pool would only be able to be accessed from the connection servers matching the tag that we select. So maybe an example here would be some of the connection servers are external facing and paired with a security server. And you may have a tag that says external, so you know that external users come in on one side of infrastructure and your internal users on the other. Then we have the option for category folder. So selecting a category folder allows us to place a shortcut on the desktop pool or on the device in the desktop pool. So disabled means it doesn't do it. If we click the radio button for select a category, we can select here on the categories or add a new folder. We could then put those shortcut locations either in the start menu or on the desktop. Next, we have our remote settings, so our remote power policy. So what do? So we take no action on the power, ensure that machines are always powered on, suspend or power off. So we're going to take no action on these. Next, what happens when a user disconnects? Do they automatically get logged off? Never. Do they automatically get logged off immediately or after a certain period of time? So we're going to say never. I don't want them to be logged off if they disconnect. If their session accidentally gets disconnected, maybe the network glitched out for a second or 5-minute break or whichever, I don't really want them to log off and have to log back in, because that would potentially mean they would get another new machine, it would get built, it puts load on the infrastructure, and when it was only a 30-second network outage. So we'll leave that for never. Allow users to restart their machines, yes or no. Allow users to initiate separate sessions from different client devices. So if I'm running a session here on a device, will I be allowed to go and pick up another device and launch another session? Yes or no? Bearing in mind that could have licensing implications for the number of users that you have in your Horizon environment. Next, do we want to delete or refresh the machine on logoff, as this is a linked clone? Do we want to delete the machine when they log off, or do we want to refresh the machine, i.e. put it back to its original state because it's a linked clone so we can snapshot back? Do we want to do that never, immediately, or delete it immediately, or refresh it immediately? Then we have our protocol settings, which protocol we're going to use. Blast, PC over IP or RDP. Do we want to allow our users to change the protocol? Yes or no? So there may be the option to change should perhaps, I know, for example, you had PC over IP. They're out in the field in a location where the PC over IP port 4172 is being blocked. They won't be able to get the desktop, but they can't change the protocol either to get around that. So you might want to say that yes, which means that they could manually choose a different protocol. 3D renderer. What's going to be driving the 3D rendering of the virtual desktop machine? Is it going to be automatic, so it chooses between software or hardware? Is it going to be software rendering only? Is it going to be hardware rendering? Or is it going to use NVIDIA, or we're not going to render at all? Between software and hardware, if you go for automatic, then if you were using hardware based and you failed over to a machine, maybe in a DR scenario that didn't have the hardware, then automatic would be allowed to connect the user to the server. You may not have the hardware rendering, but you would still be able to carry on working. If you hard coded it to hardware and you failed over and there was no hardware, they won't work. But at least with software, it might not be as good as hardware, but at least they're working. So we're going to leave that as automatic. How many monitors? 1 or 2 in this case. If we change some of this, then we'll see that we may have some more. The other option there was also to configure the amount of video memory as well, between 64 meg and 512 meg. What's the maximum resolution of any one monitor? So here we have standard HD. Do we want to go up to 4K? Depends on our monitor, depends on our endpoint device, and also the number of monitors. 4K, you can't support as many with the lower resolutions. Do we want to allow our end users to access their desktop using the web browser? Simple check yes or no, enabled, disabled. And also, do we want the session collaboration? So the ability to allow users to collaborate and share across the platform. Note there, it requires VMware Blast Protocol. Be aware that if you choose RDP or PC over IP, it still allows you to check the box for enabling this. But obviously it won't work because you need Blast. So we'll set that back to Blast. How do we want to control our Adobe Flash setting within our sessions? Do we not want to control it? Do you want low, medium and high quality, which will affect the amount of bandwidth, as will flash throttling? Do we want to throttle it conservatively, moderately, or do we really want to throttle it and stop it from taking everything? And finally, we have Mirage settings. So if you were using Mirage, Mirage is now end of life. You can override global Mirage settings, point at the Mirage configuration server to allow that to configure your hardware. So when you're happy with the settings there, we click Next to continue. And now we have our provisioning settings. So the first one is our basic settings. That's either do we want to enable provisioning or don't we? Are we going to build the desktops in the pool or are we not? Stop provisioning on error is pretty important. Say, for example, you're going to build maybe, 1,000 desktops. You probably wouldn't want to build 1,000 with the same error. So if we got to number 1 and it errored, it wouldn't provision number 2. So therefore we wouldn't end up with our 1,000 desktops all with errors. Next, virtual machine naming. We can specify names manually. So there are no names currently, so we could enter names here. So if you just add the list and name 1, for example, next. And our name 1, it doesn't exist, so we just do this as an example, and then we'd have the number of names there. So that means we would be able to manually select the names for our machines, and then have the ability to start those in maintenance mode, and how many machines to be kept powered on. We're going to use the automatic naming pattern, so it will name the machines for us, but we need to give it the first part of the pattern. So we're going to call this Win10-LC for linked clones, and then dash, and then we're going to do a curly bracket, N, and close curly bracket. So the N denotes a number, and that will increase as we build a desktop. So the first one will be Win10-LC-1, the second one will be Win10-LC-2, 3, 4, and so on, until we reach the maximum number of machines in our desktop pool sizing. So how many machines do we want? So we're going to say 2, so there's a maximum of 2 machines. Number of powered on, so how many are powered on and ready to go? We'll say 1, we could say 2. Minimum number of ready provision machines during View Composer maintenance operations. So if we need to do a refresh or a rebalance or something along those lines, or one of the View Composer management tasks, how many machines do we want to keep ready whilst the others are being recomposed, just so that we have a number of machines so that users can continue. Next, we have our provisioning timings. So do we want to build machines on demand, i.e. are we going to build both of those machines right here, right now? Or the radio button here for provision machines on demand. So these will be built as and when a user logs on and requests them. So we're going to go for upfront, so we're going to build them right here, right now, and then click Next to continue. So as we've got View Composer, we see the option for disposable file redirection. So this is all our temporary files. So we want to redirect those to a non-persistent disk. Don't want these to persist. It's temporary files. We don't need them anymore. So where are we going to put them? So we're going to create a disk that's of that size. We can change that as minimum as 512 meg. So we'll leave it as the default size, and we'll automatically allow it to select a drive letter. The end user won't see the drive letter. Or we could choose not to redirect disposable files and just let it do what it normally does on the operating system disk. So we're going to redirect those for now. I'm going to click Next to continue. Then we have our storage management policy. So the first options are for VMware Virtual SAN or vSAN. We don't have one of those in our infrastructure, so therefore they are grayed out. But what we do have is the ability to select separate data stores for replica and OS. So we can actually split the replica and the OS disk. So replicas are going to get hit quite often as it goes back to the operating system and looks back to the parent. So we could separate those and tier those between levels of storage. So replicas, as it says here on the right hand side, should be a high performance data store. So we could select to choose where those disks go. Next, our vCenter settings is where we choose the image for the machine. So our default image or our parent VM, click on Browse. So this is our Windows 10 machine. So we click our Windows 10 machine and click OK. And because it's a linked clone, we need to then choose the snapshot. So our snapshot here, we're able to see there's our Windows 10 gold image snapshot. If you click the box here, it will show all images, so all snapshots for that machine. If you want to see the details, we can click the details box and it tells us the details. If we'd have given it a description, the description would show here. So we select our Windows 10 gold image snapshot and click OK. Next, virtual machine location. Where are we going to put it? So we're going to put it in our data center, PVO data center. And resource settings. Where's this machine going to run? So we need to choose the host or cluster it's going to run on. So this is our ESX host there. Our resource pool, again, is our ESX host in this lab. And the data store, where's it going to be stored? So in this example, it's going on our VM data store, and we've got a storage overcommit option. So are we going to overcommit the storage moderately, aggressively, or unbounded, or none? So we'll go for the default conservative and click OK to continue. We will get a warning here. It says please ignore this if the desktop pool is configured on a single host, which ours is. So therefore we could ignore this and click OK to continue. Once you're happy with the settings in there, we click Next to continue. And now we have our advanced storage options. So we've got the option here to use the View Storage Accelerator. So this is the cache in the host that's storing the commonly read blocks. So it's sometimes often called content-based read cache, or CBRC. It's going to be doing that on the OS disks, so it's going to be caching those disks. How often do you want that cache to be regenerated? So by default, it's 7 days. So regenerate that cache after 7 days. We also have other options here. So the one grayed out is for use native NFS snapshots. So that's our VAAI, our vStorage API for array integration. So that offloads to the actual storage device if it supports VAAI. Or we can reclaim VM disk space. So initiate reclamation when unused space exceeds 1 gig. So that'll go back and claim this disk space back. With storage operations, they may take some time to complete and it may impact the performance of your environment whilst it's doing so. So we can add blackout times. When do you not want it to go and regenerate cache and reclaim back storage? So simply we can select don't do it on Monday. So don't during the week basically. So we go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, but you can do it the weekend and you can do it between these times. So that tells you there that we've actually configured that. Next, we have transparent page sharing. So you can transparently share pages of memory across virtual machines, across the whole entire desktop pool, across the machines in a pod, or all over by checking globally. So we'll go with virtual machine and click next to continue. Now we have our guest customization. So this is where we can customize that particular virtual desktop machine as we build it. So first of all, we see domain. So where's it going to live? That's our pvolab.com and the container into which we're going to put it. So the container in this case is just going to go into our computers container. We could browse. As you see here, we'll see our Active Directory and we'll see all of our other containers. So probably good practice is to have a container here that says Horizon desktops perhaps, just so it's easier to manage and you know where they go then. Allow reuse of pre-existing computer accounts. So if a computer account had already been created, which potentially it has because these machines will be trashed and rebuilt as we go, you don't have to create a new account. We could use a pre-existing account. How are we going to customize that machine? So we've got a thing here called Quick Prep. As it says, it does this much quicker than a sysprep, but it doesn't do everything. So we can have some power off script names. So we can add some other synchronization tasks here to do post synchronization. So add some parameters and scripts around that. Or we could use our good old sysprep script. So it would pick this up from our vCenter server. We could select it. It's our name file, if you like, our answer file that allows us to add things like maybe the product key, what network connect to, what version of the OS we're going to install. So we're going to just go with Quick Prep and the defaults and click next to continue. So finally, we see our ready to complete screen. So this is a summary of all of those things that we've just configured. So it's probably worth a few minutes just to go through to make sure we've got everything correct, because we don't want to go off and start building machines that are incorrect. So just take a minute to browse through there and check that everything's okay. You can go through the back button here if you want to. That'll go back page by page. If you want to go directly to somewhere that you know you need to go and correct, you can just click on these directly. So for example, we didn't check HTML access. We might want to do that. And then we can jump straight back to the ready screen. Have another read, make sure we're okay to go. The other thing to highlight on this page is our entitle users after this wizard finishes box. If we check that box, it will take us straight to the entitlement screen where we can add users to the pool, so therefore they can access the desktops within. We're going to do it in a later section, so we'll leave that box unchecked for now. And then when we're happy, we're just literally going to click the finish button and allow it to go off and create our desktop pool. So now if we return back to our Horizon administrator screen, we can see here now we have our Windows 10 LC ID. For our desktop pool, it's Windows 10 LC, that's our display name. It's an automated desktop pool, it's a vCenter linked clone, it's a floating assignment using vCenter server VCS2. No users entitled, we'll do that in a later section. The pool is enabled, we didn't create any app shortcuts, and obviously because we have no users entitled, we have no sessions running. So that completes our configuration of our Windows 10 desktop pool. In the next video, we're going to create a third desktop pool, this time an instant clone desktop pool, but again using our Windows 10 virtual image.